And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a Bookish Moment. Thank you very much for joining us on this Wednesday. I am Sarah Burr.
And I am JC Kenny. And Sarah, I think it's time to spend some time this afternoon getting bookish.
Let's get bookish. And today we are joined by the wonderful Trixie Silvertale. Trixie
Woo!
is a prolific author. I cannot wait to hear about her latest endeavor with her new Harper Moon Investigation series. It's going to be really exciting to hear about what is in store for Trixie's characters. So we're delighted to have you here today, Trixie. Why don't you go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Trixie Silvertale. I write paranormal cozy mystery, and I love to write female characters who are strong but flawed and who can help themselves but aren't above accepting a helping hand from the right guy.
I am a big believer in like leaning on others when you are investigating a mystery. I think it's much more
Hmm.
fun to sleuth with friends.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that is one of the really exciting features that Mitzi Moon has when she is on her investigations. So Trixie, tell us a little about the new series that you have launched that is a prequel to your prolific Mitzi Moon investigation series.
Sure. So not quite a prequel. This is a spinoff.
Spinoff.
The book that we were talking about, Ropes and Last Hopes, is the prequel to the spinoff, which actually takes place after. So it's after the Mitzi Moon mystery series. So that main long-running series that I have is a 21 book paranormal cozy mystery series that finished last year. And then we kind of had gotten to the point in the relationships and the storylines where it was time to close up that series, time to, kind of wrap it all up and give readers that feeling of we got where we thought we were going when we got on this train, 21 books ago. But because I love living in Pincherry Harbor and my readers seem to like visiting as well, I thought, there's so much more to tell, and there's more that we can do with these relationships and these characters if we kind of give things a little twist and, make things a little bit different. And so we launched this prequel series, or this, I'm sorry, now I'm saying it. We launched this spin-off series with the prequel, Ropes and Last Hopes, and then the first book, Bells and Bombshells, just launched March 28th. So we're off and running in this new series, Harper and Moon Investigations, and we've got our main character, Mitzi Moon, but now she's sharing screen time, if you will, with Eric Harper. So I don't, want to spoil it terribly for people, but the books have been out for a while. So when we launched the spin-off series, they're working together. They've finally, solidified their relationship, and they're officially investigating together. So technically, she's still an amateur sleuth, but moving towards legitimizing that with the detective agency.
Well, that is so cool. It's so exciting. I mean, one of the things that I love the way you mentioned the fact that with Mitzi, she likes to have help from the guy when he's the right guy. And I think that is
Mhm.
so important to Sarah's point about having supportive folks. So can you tell us a little bit for folks who aren't familiar with your work, a little bit about Eric and Mitzi?
Sure. So in the original series, The Mitzi Moon Mysteries, Eric is the sheriff of a very small town in what we call almost Canada, the fictional town of Pincherry Harbor. And Mitzi is a broke barista living in Arizona, about to be evicted from her apartment. And some strange little man shows up with an envelope full of cash and a will and a key. And she gets on a bus to see what it's all about, winds up in Pincherry Harbor accused of murder
Oh,
by the local sheriff, and you know has to solve the murder to save her own skin, kind of thing, and then winds up staying in town once she discovers what the key unlocks and what she's actually inherited. And uh, her her team of sleuthing helpers kind of expands as she finds a mentor for her special psychic powers that are just developing. and she meets the cat, who in the series isn't a talking cat, but he's very able to communicate what he wants and what he thinks. So that's Pyewacket, the caracal, who she is unable to solve mysteries without him. He's always just one step ahead, dropping a little clue here and there that kind of help keep her on track. And then she's got the ghost of her grandmother who passed, who is permanently tethered to the bookshop that she inherited. And so that becomes her team of sleuthers that help her solve the different cases that she stumbles across.
So, one thing that I absolutely love, especially when talking with paranormal cozy mystery authors, is, it takes one thing to decide, I'm going to write a mystery novel. And
Mhm.
it's another layer to say, I'm going to write a mystery novel that has paranormal elements to it. And so I would love to know, Trixie, like, what was it about this genre that drew you to writing it? And how did Mitzi introduce herself to you at first?
Sure. Well, I'm obsessed with the paranormal. I believe in ghosts. I believe in seances. Whatever, all of that. So
Mhm.
I love all of that, and so being able to incorporate that into my writing was just a super fun idea. Everyone kind of has had a psychic moment where they're like, "Oh, I knew that that phone was going to ring," or "I when this happened to my son or my daughter, I felt it. I knew it happened." Kind of a thing. So people kind of can relate to that. Um, Inner psychic. And for Mitzi, she's just discovering what it means to be psychic and what kind of powers she really has. And so for me, she came to me long before I ever wrote the series. I just knew that name
Mhm.
and mysteries that had to happen somehow, somewhere. And the paranormal element came about after I wrote the first draft, actually, because I just felt like there was something missing.
Oh,
It
okay.
wasn't quite what I had imagined it was going to be, and
Hmm.
so there was more to it that I wanted to uncover and delve into. And as those elements, folded in, it became what it is,
Oh,
and
wow.
and that, yeah, and that really allowed me to build that world and keep it growing. And I think it gives me a lot of room. I don't have magical beings in my stories. I don't have vampires and werewolves and that sort of thing, but I have the psychic element, and her mentor is an alchemist, and I have a ghost. So and she sees other ghosts, and there have been various stories where she's had to help other ghosts cross over. So there, that kind of element folds through. But other than that, it's really a cozy mystery,
Mhm.
and she happens to be psychic, kind of a thing.
I find it fascinating that your first draft didn't have those elements in it. And just it goes to show like what a process it is to
Yeah.
create a story and finding all of those elements, the right ones, and putting them together. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the setting that so Mitzi is living in Arizona. She gets this mysterious key to a place that's I love almost Canada. And so tell us about this town that she kind of stumbles into and really just builds a life there.
Yeah, I knew I wanted a place with really distinct seasons. I As I write the series, the books different take place in different seasons. So there's snow, there's tornadoes, there's whatever. So I have that, and I wanted that connection to possible international mischief. And we've had a couple of stories that have taken place not in Canada entirely, but they've had to go to Canada, or
Hmm.
the train has gone through Canada, or whatever has happened there. And I wanted it to be by a body of water. So in the United States, the Great Lakes are kind of the bodies of water, and so I wanted it to be on a Great Lake, because I think that you can do a lot with watercraft, with islands, with all of that. So for me, the seasons, the water, those types of things just helped me kind of build Cherry Harbor as this kind of, on a Great Lake in almost Canada, location.
How did you come up
It
with the
reminds
name?
me of Oh, I was just going to say it reminds me a little bit of Lillian Jackson Braun and the way Quill, after the first couple of novels, he moves up north, and
Yes.
so you kind of get the impression it's like, okay, kind of somewhere close to Canada. So,
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
I was just curious how the name Pincherry Harbor like came, because that's just like such a fun collection of words together that and I'm always just fascinated by names themselves, especially like in the paranormal, because there are so many things in this world that could have like a paranormal meaning. So I'm just curious if there's anything behind the name.
Well, for me, it really is more of just a nod to my grandfather. He was really important to my life and taught me all about, how to navigate in the woods and what berries you can eat and what berries you can't eat. And pen cherries were something that, you can eat these. And I ate one and I never wanted to eat another one again as long as I lived, because they're the kind of berry that you have to sweeten extensively
Mhm.
if you're going to enjoy it in any form. So in my books, they're frequently used in pies or jams or other things where they're highly sugared. But yes, so it really, for me, it was just a nod to him.
Oh, I love that. That's a great.
So I've got a question, kind of going back to Mitzi a little bit.
Sure.
Uh, Talking about her gift, or her, however, when we talk about the fact that she's a psychic,
Mhm.
can you talk about what her powers, what her gift actually is? Because I know a lot of times it's easy for people to think, okay, well, somebody's a psychic, and they may not necessarily are, because you've got a psychic or a medium, and those are kind of different
Right.
things. So can you kind of, kind
Right.
of set the table for us there?
Sure. Sure. So her powers kind of unfold slowly. So essentially, she has clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance. And so she gets messages in different ways. And she has a mood ring that gives her special messages as well. Um, so as the books develop and she gets these different types of messages, she learns more about her powers, as well as being apprenticed to this alchemist. So she also learns to do some alchemical workings as she moves her way through the series. So what I try to be very careful of is not allowing her to rely on her abilities only to solve crime. So I'll frequently impair her in some way, where she's got an injury or she's got to take pain medication and it interferes with her abilities, whatever it is, so
Mhm.
that she is forced to do some real down home sleuthing. It's not just, oh, I just look at my crystal ball and do this, she doesn't have a crystal ball, but she does do things like she'll do some scrying with a pendulum, to find someone. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, because it's all about how you formulate your question. And if you don't formulate your question properly, then you don't get the proper answer. So I definitely try to build in obstacles for her. So it's not just as simple as, oh, I know this, kind of a thing. She has to actually work it out.
I think that that's an element of the paranormal cozy mystery that a lot of people might not be aware of. That
Hmm.
we as writers have to actively kind of put these obstacles in our loose way. Otherwise, we're going to just kind of make it way too easy for them to
Right.
solve their
Yeah.
crime. So that's hearing your process of how you do that. I think is very cool. For the spinoff, Trixie, how did you have the idea of the spinoff as you were finishing the Mitzi's prior story, or were you like totally prepared to say goodbye, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know what, I can't do this, I want to tell more, and thus you have Harper Moon Investigations?
Well, I had always planned uh, to spin it off. I just
Okay.
didn't know when.
When?
So
Okay.
for me, I always, put my books up for pre-order and I track my pre-orders and and that helps me gauge interest and that sort of thing. So uh, I always told my readers, as long as, you keep reading, I keep writing. And so when I saw the pre-orders going down a little bit, I was like, okay, it's time to wrap up this series and get a fresh take on it. and the timing just seemed to be right, because I've had really good response from my loyal readers to the new series, but also new people who have now a second entry point, which I think is always good when you're bringing people into a series. They might not have any idea about Mitzi Moon Mysteries. They may have just seen the Ropes and Last Hopes go up, and they grab that book and they're like, oh cool, a new paranormal cozy mystery I can read. And then when they find out there's a whole 21 book series, that gives them all the backstory they're wondering about. For most cozy mystery readers, that's Christmas,
Yeah, I would say, like, if that happened to me on a series that I was just reading, I would be like, oh my gosh, like, this is the best fortune ever.
Yeah.
Because,
I've got 20 more books to read.
Right.
So with that being said, so knowing that, you were planning all along to have a spin-off, do you know, do you have in mind, like, a duration of your Harper Moon investigations? Is this going to be another 20 book series, or do you have like a set goal of where you'd like Mitzi to be by the end of this particular section of her life?
Well, I tend to keep it a little open-ended because, like I said, I love living in Penterry Harbor, so and I have more ideas than books I can ever write. So I'm unfortunately I'm not going to run out of ways to kill people. Bad news for everyone, but that I don't concern myself with. But currently, I'm only planning about 12 books in the spinoff series, but that's not set in stone for me.
Mhm.
I plan my release schedule out about 18 months in advance. So if the sales are going well and pre-orders are going well and things are moving along, and the series is as successful as the Mitzi Moon Mysteries, I could certainly write more. I wouldn't have any issue with that.
Awesome. Well,
That is so cool.
The fact that we have a copy of Ropes and Hopes that is up for grabs today for our giveaway,
Yeah.
which is very exciting. Thank you so much, Trixie, for delighting our viewers who have tuned in live. Folks, if you would like to enter in for the giveaway for a chance to win a copy of Ropes and Hopes, which is the prequel to the spinoff of so that it'll set the stage very nicely for you for the Harper Moon investigation series. And if you would like to enter in, please, Trixie, you want to tell them what their magic word is that they will type into the Google chat?
Yes, the magic word is croissant.
Croissant.
I feel like I'm playing password right now.
Thank you. I feel like sometimes I've said that and people haven't gotten the reference. So I appreciate that. So folks, go ahead and type in the word croissant into the Google chat. Make sure you are logged in either on your YouTube or Google account. If your spelling is off, don't worry about it. I'll scoop you up in our raffle. So make sure to get your entry in there, and we will announce our winner at the end of our 30 minutes, which is rapidly depleting.
Yeah, you were right. It does go by very fast.
Time flies.
Yeah. So let's get right back into it. So Trixie, the first book in the new series is Bells and Bombshells.
Yes.
And so it's been out about a month. So
a couple weeks.
Couple weeks. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, just a couple weeks.
Yeah.
March 28th. Yeah.
Okay. So what happens then? What's coming up next for you?
So I am working on the next book in that series, which is Rodeo Clowns and Shakedowns. So
Okay.
we got ladies wrestling in Ropes and Last Hopes, and we've got all kinds of wedding disaster and Bells and Bombshells, and then we've got murder at the rodeo in the next one. So
Okay.
I must know your titles. How do the titles come to you before you write the book? Because they're very thematic. So I'm curious, like how, and I mean, it's the fact that they rhyme is always so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like title. I'm all about names. So tell us about your title process.
Well, I have a Word doc, several pages of a Word doc filled with potential titles. And I literally cannot write the first word until I have selected my title. So I spend more time finding my title, I think, sometimes than I do outlining. But I am an outliner. I'm not a pantser. I'm a plotter. But the title is key for me. That has to be in place for my brain to click in and start writing the book.
Have you ever swapped out a title though as you've been writing it, or has the title like always stayed true?
Oh boy, let me think about that. Um, I think I did on one of the short stories. There's two novellas in the Mitzi Moon Mysteries series that were part of different anthologies, and I believe I ended up changing the title because there was another one that was similar,
Mm-hmm.
and just to avoid confusion, and I had other options. Like I said, I've got pages and pages. So I believe I did at that on that one, but it was very similar still.
Well, I mean, the fact that 22 plus books at this point, and like your titles, that's amazing. That always seems to be that's always a sticking point for myself as a writer. So I'm very much in awe.
Yep.
But I love that how thematic they are in regards to the kind of goings on of the book itself, and the fact that in order to write, it seems like you need to have that there. Can you share?
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about your writing process of like what a typical writing session looks like for you?
Sure. I'm going to just jump back to the title thing for 1 second, because I think something that a lot of people don't realize is there's a dropped item on the cover of every one of my books that always has something to do with the story. And a lot of people just think, there's just whatever on the cover. It doesn't matter. But every single one of the books has that item below the title that has some key piece of information or whatever for the stories.
That's
So
a fun
anyway,
fact for folks here to take away.
It's
now,
just a weird thing that my brain does.
We'll just have to go through all of your covers now and then be like, okay, this is it.
Okay. So with my writing process, like I said, the title, that is most important to me. And I have a couple of what I call my alpha readers who are always at the very, very front line. And I'll put my top 6 or 8 or whatever it is that I feel are kind of in the theme. And then I'll ask them to tell me what are their 2 favorites. And then I'll go back and, back and forth, and eventually pick one. Once I get my title, then I do kind of a chapter by chapter outline, roughly a paragraph maybe. And it's really just what are the highlights? What do we have to hit here? What clue do we have to find? What obstacle do we have to put in her way? What piece of information comes out? And now in the Harper and Moon series, there are usually 3 or 4 chapters per book written from Eric Harper's perspective. So then I have to figure out where those fit in. When are we going to leave Mitzi, and when are we going to follow Eric and figure out what he's doing, because all the books are first person. So, the reader only gets to see what the sleuth is seeing. So when we leave Mitzi and go with Eric, then there's a different tone to that chapter, because it's through his eyes, how he sees it, how he interprets it, what he's finding. So that's basically it. That I do that chapter by chapter outline, and then I dictate all my books on roller skates. So, and that is the truth.
That is.
I have to. It's the only way I can shut off my editor brain.
My goodness.
I just skate and dictate.
Holy! I have tried to dictate. I tried a short
roller
story
skates.
years ago, and roller skates. Yeah, I did it in grade school, but I those are folks like you who can dictate stories. That I tip my hat to you. That is an amazing skill, and I'm a little envious.
Well, don't be, because if you were my sister and you get my voicemails where I speak and leave the punctuation,
oh my goodness,
that's not exactly a great thing.
Is Skates and Dictate going to be a book title? I mean, that seems like it fits perfectly.
If only dictation was a form of murder, then I guess it could work.
Yes.
But yeah.
If anybody can find a way, it would be you, Trixie.
Yeah. Okay. I'll
So
work on it.
that's probably the coolest thing that I've heard in a really long time.
Yeah.
Like that just takes like writing to a whole different level.
Yes.
One thing that I would love to know that regarding your your current writing process now, because you're writing in first person and you are writing from Eric's point of view, is that like a fun, exciting exercise at this point, since you have been writing as Mitzi for so long? Is it like something new and fun, or are you like, oh, Eric, like I want to get back to Mitzi?
No, it's really fun because there are a couple of books in the Mitzi Moon series where Mitzi was kidnapped or, whatever it was. And I'm just like, well, we can't just sit in the cabin with her for 2 days. This is ridiculous. We have to go back into town and find out what everyone's doing. So there are a few instances where I wrote from Eric's perspective, and I loved it. It was really fun because he's always in there, trying to get his 2 cents in, and it wasn't his book, kind of thing. So it's really fun to have that in the Harper Moon, to be able to throw his perspective in there and let the reader see how he sees Mitzi, because I think that's important. She had a rough childhood and, doesn't have maybe the confidence that she should for the skill set that she has and what she can accomplish. And so he sees her in a different way. And I think it's nice for the readers to get that perspective too.
And, along that line, unfortunately, our time is almost up, but you talk about confidence and things like that. I wonder, as such an accomplished author that you're self-published, you've done this on your own terms and in your own way. What do you have some, maybe words of advice or wisdom you could, maybe share with our folks, because you've taken your own path. It's been hugely successful. And I'm sure you got, some helpful stuff for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the most difficult things to do when you're writing and not selling books is to keep writing. And you just have to keep writing because if it's your passion and it's the thing you want to do, you will find the way. And so, you've got to keep writing your stories, and you've got to let the world hear your voice, because there is a market for it. And there are so many different stories to tell. And I think it would be a shame if people give up because they, feel like they don't matter, because I think everyone has an important story to share, and I think they do matter. And yes, there are hoops that you have to jump through and things that you have to do. But as you well know, we could do a whole series of podcasts on how to become an indie author. So it isn't an easy track. It does require, you're the only person that tells you to get out of bed and do your work every day. And so if you don't treat it like a business and you don't value your time, I ran a film school for years, and one of the things I always told my students was, you have to be a functional creative. Creativity is fantastic, and feed it and run with it and live with it. But if you can't make a schedule, if you can't set a deadline, people will tell me, well, I don't want to put my book up for pre-order because I don't know if I'm gonna make that deadline. Well, then you ain't taking your job serious, because if you worked at a job and you had a deadline for a project, would you do it? Then you owe it to yourself to do the same. So that just, respect yourself and keep working.
I think that is such wonderful advice. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that need to hear it. So Trixie, thank you for sharing that with us.
This guy does.
Yeah. I'm just like sitting here like, yes. Thank you for validating every feeling that we have.
Yes.
That's wonderful advice. And for folks who have enjoyed listening to Trixie talk about her new series, Harper and Moon Investigations, make sure that you drop into the Google chat the word croissant for a chance to win Ropes and Hopes, which is the prequel that will kind of introduce things as Mitzi and Eric get their detective agency up and running, or their sleuthing up and running. And while we are tabulating our winner, Trixie, can you let our folks know where they can find you, either online, through a newsletter, what have you?
Sure. My website is trixiesilvertale.com, and I'm probably most active in my Facebook reader group. But if you join the newsletter, which there's, in the back matter of all my books, there's a sign up. But if you join the newsletter, then you'll have a link to join the Paranormal Cozy Club online and Facebook. And also, I do a lot of BookBub recommendations. So if people follow me on BookBub, I try to post recommendations. I haven't been that great about it lately, but I've got a lot of them up there, and I'll definitely keep going. But then you also know about deals and things like that when new releases are coming out, or if one of my books is on a featured deal, if that sort of thing. So BookBub or my website are probably the best places to find me.
Excellent.
Super.
Your reader group sounds really fun.
Yeah.
Is that something that you are like active on weekly, or how, like, what's the vibe of it? I'm curious.
We have some good admin people that post every single day, multiple
Wow.
times a day, and then I jump in there probably about once a week to kind of comment or whatever, and then I do a monthly signed paperback giveaway for that group only, and people just have to answer a little question in the comments, and then I mail those out every month. So it's just a good way for people who love living in Penn Cherry Harbor to talk about it more with other people who love living there too.
Excellent. So for folks that
Cool.
may not be aware that that's happening, make sure that you find that, because that sounds like an amazing group.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, Trixie, our bookish moment is drawing to a close. Thank you so much, though, for spending a half hour with us today and talking
Absolutely.
all things Mitzi Moon. Best name out there. So fun to say. Your winner for today's giveaway is, drumroll please, Mizan. Congratulations.
All right.
Woo!
Mizan is one of our bookish moment regulars, so I'm excited
Nice.
get to celebrate with her. And so for folks who may have not joined us on the live stream, but are tuning in now, please make sure that you go out and check Trixie's latest series that is out, available now, Harper and Moon Investigations. Follow her on her newsletter, her website, Facebook, all the great places. Trixie, again, thank you so much for being here. It was a delight to chat with you today, and I hope you'll come back
Trixie.
to celebrate another release for Mitzi and Eric.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Wonderful. Well, everybody, we will see you on our next episode of the Bookish Hour, which is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. That is April 6th. We are joined by Elle Hartford. It's going to be a great show, and we will see you then. Until then, make sure to stay bookish. Bye, everybody. Have a great one.
See y'all.